Welcome back, viewers. You're watching Asian Vibes, and my guest today is David Evans, and we are talking about cruising to Asia. So, David, I spend so much of money. I've planned in advance for 2 years. What happens if I feel cruising in the sea? I mean, just being in the sea is making me dizzy.
That's a common concern.
Yeah.
And I can't guarantee you're not going to get seasick, but my experience is most people, it isn't a problem. There are 3 or 4 medical things you can do. There's a thing called C bands. It's like those wrist things people wear. It puts pressure points here.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. There's a transdermal patch, like the nicotine patch goes behind the ear, puts in a controlled amount of Gravol into your system, or you can just take anti-seasickness pills. But the truth of the matter is the modern ships have big stabilizers. They're like big arms come out the side, and they're like outriggers. They really prevent the ship from rocking. They all have Doppler radar, so if there's a storm, they can avoid it.
Oh, okay.
Those sorts of things. And because the ships are a lot bigger than they used to be, they don't move as much in the water. And I'm not going to tell you you won't feel the ocean. If you're in an open area and it's a bit rough, you will feel the motion, but you feel the motion on a bus. You feel the motion in a car. You feel the motion on an airplane. You just sort of got to get it in your head that it's not bothering you. And even myself, who's done about 15 cruises, I feel the motion the first day. It doesn't bother me, but I can feel it. By about the 3rd day, I don't even feel it anymore.
It's also the orientation, getting used to the orientation in the ship itself.
And I did a cruise once that was only about 500 passengers, small ship. It was in the Mediterranean, and we were going through 20, 30-foot waves. And I felt it moving, but it was an older, small ship.
Okay.
So there's things you can do about the ship you pick, the area it's cruising, and the time of year, because there's certain storms in certain times of year. And if that's a concern of you, then you should mention it when you're booking it and pick cruises that are less likely to cause that problem.
Mm-hmm.
There's no guarantee, but I've had a lot of people concerned about that, and they came back from the cruise and it wasn't a problem.
They had an absolute great time.
Yeah, so generally it's usually not a problem.
And again, coming back to cost, with regards to what can we take with us, and what is covered, and what are the extras that
again it's a bit different depending. The more luxury cruise line, the more things are included that you don't have to pay for. But the general rule of thumb is most things on the ship are covered. When you go ashore, generally that's at your own expense. At the luxury end, they're going to pay for your excursions.
Oh, wow.
At the bottom end, not so much. Most cruise ships charge a daily gratuity, so you don't have to tip anybody. That goes to all the people in the restaurants, the people come into your stateroom and whatnot. And it's a sort of a standard fee, but you can go down and change that if you want. That's not the thing. Certainly all your meals are included. Depending on the cruise you're on, the level of beverages, generally it's beverages with meals. Soft drinks and alcoholic drinks are not included at the lower end cruises. As you go up into the higher end, those ones will be included.
Wow.
Laundry may be included on the higher ends. On the lower ends, a lot of them have self-serve laundry, or a lot of the cruise lines have a mesh bag. It's as much clothes as you can stuff into it for $30. And then the next day it shows up in your bedroom on your bed, all folded and clean. So,
and currencies and things like that?
Most ships, the currency is US dollar.
And then you can
exchange. You can change money there. Depending where you are, you may want to carry some local currency. My experience is most places will accept plastic credit cards now. And you're probably better off with that than carrying large amounts of currency, particularly if you're going country to country to country, and there's different currency in each country. I've come home with pockets full of change from all sorts of countries, and I'm thinking, why did I do this? I mean, it's
a bag of money,
and certainly every time you change, buying money and selling it back, they charge you a fortune for that. So, and they won't take change, by the way, when you come back. So.
And local sightseeing, shopping, and food and extra on the ground is very, very reasonable, very, very cheap.
It depends on the country, but Asia, yes.
Yeah, in general.
I mean, look, everything seems to be made in China these days. So, so
even
I mean, go to the source. Yeah.
You buy a souvenir from Canada, and it has.
I bought a hat in New Zealand. I really liked it, and it turned out made in China. Okay,
I can totally understand. Any anecdotes and experience that you'd like to share with our viewers before we wrap up, or any last minute advice?
Not so much anecdotes. My advice, again, I think I've said all the way through the more you plan and the more you have help planning, the better your trip's going to be.
David, another thing I wanted to ask before we wrap up is what about health-related vaccinations and things like that we need to be careful
I
about?
would recommend you go to the local health unit because I really shouldn't give advice on that.
Understand.
However, my experience is.
But it is advisable that you pay a visit.
Yeah, I would go to there first. All ships carry a doctor and medical crew, but that's an extra cost if you need that.
Oh, okay.
I highly recommend traveling with travel insurance. If you run into medical problems in a foreign country, it can be ridiculously expensive.
Yes.
You know, especially if you say you're on a cruise and you have to go into a hospital and the cruise leaves and you're at the hospital, now you have to get from that city home.
Oh, yeah.
So insurance is good particularly for medical. As far as the vaccinations go, unless you're going inland to jungle areas, generally you don't. But again, I would go through the local health unit, tell them where you're going, and they can advise you. And there's other things like Twinrix for hepatitis, and that's a good one. If you're going to underdeveloped countries, I strongly recommend talk to your doctor about that. And Ducarol's another one. That's for diarrhea and intestinal upsets. Often you go to a foreign country, the water's maybe not as pure as you want, and some of the food may not agree with your system. So those are all good things to do.
Yeah, being responsible too.
Yes.
For your planning for this trip.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, David. You've got me all excited. Hopefully next time I travel to Asia, I won't fly. I'll try the water route.
There you go.
Thank you so much, David. Really, that was very, very informative, and I got to learn a lot. I'm sure our dear viewers have also got a lot of interesting information about cruising to Asia, which is becoming a very, very popular destination, like you said.
Yes.
Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome.
Thank you, viewers, for watching Asian Vibes.